tremendous lead.
They get it to Fisher. He scores!
Game. Look at that by McGinn.
Weber rips it with the right hand.
And we welcome you to what may very well be an award-winning episode of Open Court. Of course, it may not be, but you're here with us anyway, for better or for worse. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ernie Johnson. Always good to have you with us on Open Court, and what a panel we have, as always. Down there on my far left, my fan night compadre, the running reb, Greg Anthony is here.
Thank you, thank you.
GA. I was going to leave it up to the panel to whether there's going to be.
He's got one fan in here.
One of the great three-point shooters.
I thought you were going to finish talking about GA. You kind of just.
I was done.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I was done. There are two guys on the panel today who are both All-Stars and NBA champions. One of them is Steve Smith.
Thank you, Ernest.
You like that one?
Okay.
No, boy.
Is that good? Just a golf clap for that. This guy's got a handful of rings.
Ooh.
Derek Fisher. That'd be five.
Five. That's amazing.
Derek Fisher. With us.
Stole one from me and Webb, but
Yes, thank you.
And getting absolutely
Should have three.
no play.
I agree.
The other guy who's been an All-Star and an NBA champion, Kevin McHale.
The Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Legend.
There's Chris Webber over there.
Yeah.
Next to my man Kevin.
Five-time All-Star to boot.
Yellow Jackets.
And this guy would also have a handful of championship rings if he only had two fingers.
You like that though?
That was good.
Hey, listen, man. Some people need no fingers to get that ring. No fingers. But I love your sock game. It's exquisite, Ernest.
How about the shoe game too?
The sock game.
He said, "Yeah, he's talking about his shoe game."
Hold up on that, baby.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
It's a little something.
I'll tell you.
Something like that.
Harlem Night.
Anyway, it's Boardwalk Empire. So here's what we're doing on this show. We're talking about, because we have NBA champions here, obviously, and we have guys who have come close. And we want to talk about the best teams to never win an NBA title. And we're going to kind of go by decades on this. And before we get to that, I guess we just set it up, Kenny, by saying, look, Golden State Warriors are living proof last year that you can have a record-setting regular season, something that's never been done by anybody, any time in NBA history, and it's late into getting that ring and that championship trophy.
No, the best team always wins in the NBA because of the 7-game series. I think a lot of teams are built for the regular season, and some teams are built for the playoffs. And, San Antonio Spurs would be a team I would think of all the time. When they don't win, they're really built for the playoffs. They're not trying a lot of times to win during the regular seasons. They don't play a particular brand, a basketball that can conducively win in the regular season. But, I know we go on era, but the first people, guys to my left, man, this guy right here, that Sacramento team, Chris Webber is on.
Yeah, we will get to that one.
That was one of the best basketball teams to not win a championship, and all of the Portland teams ever that played against Michael Jordan.
Yeah. D-Fish, it can be such a fine line, though, can't it? Between being the team that pops the champagne and being the team that says, boy, I came this close once to winning an NBA title.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think in football it's easier. We talk about 1 yard or a few inches, and they have the things that measure the first down. They can pull out the sticks.
The chains.
And they can, the chains, and they can see whether or not it's a first down or not, and whether or not you got that close. In basketball, it's more arbitrary. You're not sure what that one thing is that may have cost you the difference between winning and losing when you look back at a game. And you're not sure what that one thing is that may have cost you the difference between winning and losing when you look back at a game. And that's why people have to watch, which is, good for us. But it's oftentimes hard to figure out why you did or didn't.
I totally disagree. No, I'm just I mean, it is. I mean, all of us been in it. And the one thing for us is not the one game. I wish we could have just one game sometimes, but it's a 7-game series. So much have to play in it. And like you said, Kenny, you said it best. Webb's team, I was rooting for him. One, the brand of basketball they played. One, me and Webb had that Detroit connection, so you root for him. And then I would think throw out another team, the team me and GA played on, as far as talking about top to bottom talent. I don't think there's another team that had more talent. We didn't have that it factor, GA, to get over that hump.
And for us, young team in Orlando, we were so young with that Kenny team. I remember watching the tape, and Rudy was like, how are we going to slow these young guys down? They're running, we got inside out. But y'all came out with the experience and knew what y'all wanted to do to take us out of our game. And that was one of the things that we always talk about, teamwork and everybody buying in. All the championship teams I've talked to and played against, they've all believed in their role and played to their role.
Did the best team always win when you didn't win a championship, Kevin?
Yeah, I got to go with that, too. It's a 7-game series. What Fish was saying, I got to go with that, too. It's a 7-game series. What Fish was saying, there's a play here or a play there in every series that turns it. It's a 2-1 series. Now, the difference between 3-1 and 2-2 is night and day. There's a tip ball, there's a rebound, there's a bad call, there's something that happens in there, and it just goes in favor of the team that ties it up at 2-2. At 3-1, you're putting them away. At 2-2, it's a whole new series. And so there's always a small play here, a small play there that you've got to make. And, the teams that can make those small plays at the end of games. And I've always said, you either really believe you can make those plays or you don't believe you can make those plays. And I'm not talking about scoring. I'm talking about getting stops. I'm talking about getting a rebound. I'm talking about getting, it just comes down to, I got a guy, I got to make him miss this shot. As simple as that. I'm not getting any help. And you've got to have guys on your team that can make those plays. And I do believe the best team in the 7-game series wins. I thought there were times that we were the better team, but they outplayed us for that 14 days. And, so for that 14 days, 7 games, they were better than we were. I would love to have played them 15 other times, but that's not the way it works.
See, Webb, when you get close or you think you have that
Forever.
I'm here today.
Forever.
You want to open my heart up? I got some pain for you.
That's what we do. It's what we do on open court.
No, I'm just playing with you, EJ, but it's there all the time. But it hurt Ernie, but growing up watching like the Celtics or the Pistons had to get through the Celtics. Then the Bulls had to get to the Pistons. So I thought, oh, this is just how it is. Just shut up, Chris, keep playing. You got to get through the Lakers. They're good. They got 3 Hall of Famers. You got to get through this. So I had seen all the history of the league and thinking, this is how you get there, and you don't get it, but you still live by the tenets of it. You lose, and you just got to keep it moving.
GA, when you come in having won a collegiate national championship, does that make you think, okay, at the next level, I'll get one there too?
My first year, the year before I got to the Knicks, they were 31-51. The next year, we go 51-31. We win the Atlantic Division, and we take the Bulls to 7, I think, in the second round that year. Like, that was, so, like, see what I was saying, like, we know, and we did, second round, conference. Than it did in that moment.
Really?
Yeah, because you do think you're going to get another chance.
Think you're getting back.
You think you're going to get another chance.
When we come back, we're going to turn back the clock. We'll go back to the 1980s. For you youngsters at home, that was a decade named for 1980 through 89, and some of you were actually alive during that point. If you weren't, wait till you see some of this video. We'll be back with more on Open Court.
I'd love to get it, and all of a sudden, man, there's just a force all over my shoulder. He grabs it, he dunks it. Those short shorts, they were right here. And I tell you right now.
Welcome back to Open Court as we talk about the best team to never win an NBA title. And we're going back to the 1980s. And it's interesting because we got a couple of guys here who played in the 1980s in the NBA, being Kevin McHale and Kenny the Jet Smith. 80s in the NBA, being Kevin McHale and Kenny the Jet Smith. We also have, guys who were in college, who were in high school, you were watching the NBA. You had guys that you were saying, oh, that's the guy I want to model my game after, and that kind of thing. Kevin, is there one best team that comes to mind that did not win it in the 80s that you thought could win it?
Yeah, it started in the 70s, but it went to the early 80s. All the Dr. J teams that started off in 77 against Portland losing and getting all the way to the Moses Malone team. Now, the Moses Malone, the famous full team, full. You got to take the mouthpiece out to do it right then. full. And then put the mouthpiece back in.
Very convincing. I thought Mo was sitting right there. Absolutely amazing.
But that all those teams, I thought that they ended up losing. The Celtics, our Celtics team, in 81, we beat them in the conference finals. They lost the NBA Finals in 1980 to when Magic has a phenomenal 7th game. They get there again in 82 and lose in the finals again. They were a great team, and they just couldn't get over the hump. Now Moses came, and that brought them over. But that team, starting in 77, with Dr. J coming in after the merger from the ABA and the NBA, getting to the finals his first year in the NBA, everybody's like, oh man, Dr. J, this thing's just going to go. And they never got over the hump really, and they won the title in 83 when Dr. J really wasn't their best player anymore.
I'm not really an 80s guy. I'm really a 90s guy.
Yeah, but you, Kenny,
What year was your draft, Kenny?
Did you or did you not play in the decade of the 80s?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you very much.
I did.
End of
Actually,
conversation.
3 years.
I know.
But the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah,
That's where I was
The
going.
Milwaukee Bucks teams, Sidney Moncrief, was probably, I'm trying to think of who would he be in this era.
I was going to say, I hate to interrupt you right there, but if you can lend that kind of a perspective
Right.
For the younger fans out
Yeah.
there, or the guys who've been watching the game, say, boy, I hear about Jack Sikma. I hear about Sidney Moncrief. Who was Jack Sikma today? Who was Sidney Moncrief today?
Sidney Moncrief was a better version of DeMar DeRozan,
Yeah.
but very similar.
Would post up more.
Would post up more.
And more rugged. Just
A little bit more rugged.
More
But
really
I'd
rugged.
say more like DeMar DeRozan with a little bit more skill.
Who would be Marcus
jump
Johnson? Marcus, you remember the small forward?
Marcus Johnson.
First of all,
man.
Marcus Johnson could play basketball.
Right?
With
Yeah.
UCLA,
Thank you.
he could really play. They had Bob Lanier as a center to start that thing.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something. If Dauber didn't like you, he just strangled you. It was a tough guy to play against. Getting strangled really takes away a lot of your game.
Change your
I
perspective.
think it will
it sure
change it.
does.
Kel McHale, other than playing against the Celtics, what was the reason you think the Bucks couldn't get over the hump? What were they missing?
Honestly, they had us or Philadelphia. We were just a little bit better than they were. But they were such a good team because you talk about Marcus Johnson. Not many people talk about him in the NBA.
All the time,
And I'm
yeah.
telling you right now, they had a team full of guys. They played so well together. Don Nelson was kind of he inverted, one of the first guys to invert the offense. Post up, he inverted, one of the first guys to invert the offense. Post up Sidney Moncrief and pull everybody out. And they played so well together, but when you looked at them, you were always fearful of that team because we played against them all the time.
Paul
So
Pressey.
I'm biased because I grew up watching Sidney in Arkansas. He went to
That's right.
Yeah.
Arkansas.
That's right.
He would spend time in Little Rock. My older brother and he would work out together. I would watch those guys. So when he got to Milwaukee and playing against you guys, I always wanted the Bucks to win. I always thought that was the next best team.
When you say
after you
say
guys.
like they were the 80s Bucks were the 90s Blazers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were
Maybe a
great
little less
team.
talent, but more together.
Well,
they were
had
so
more,
tight.
but they might have had more. Because I think the thing that, listen, at the end of the day, your team and the Sixers, when you guys played them, the best player was always on one of your teams.
Yeah, that's that.
That ultimately, to me,
Or
is
they
what,
were the 2000 version of any team playing against LeBron.
Couldn't get over the hump, but they were good.
Right.
They're
They were really
collective.
good, though. You knew it was going to be a tough 6-7 game series.
Let me tell you
every time
something.
played.
It was going to be a dogfight because they had no quit in them. They were tough as nails, and they played together, and they really believed they could beat you. Like a lot of teams, you went out there, especially when we were rolling. You kind of looked at them, and they all did this rah-rah, and they'd be like, yeah, not really. Like, we can't. But we're going to act like we can, you know. But they had that, like that rah-rah, we're going to kick your tail, and they came out there, and they were battles. That was really another really good team.
How about those Twin Towers? Samson and Elijah won together.
How long did they play together?
Houston. Only like 3 seasons.
Three seasons, yeah.
Ralph Sampson, he, to me, probably the most unique player that ever played in the NBA for his size. 7'4", handled the basketball.
break.
He could shoot the mid-range jump shot, and he could rebound mid-range jump shot, and he could rebound and defend. And, obviously, Kevin played against him in the finals. But to me, I don't even know if there's a guy like him. Like, he was a dominant guy where if the knees don't go, he might be sitting on top of Mount Rushmore.
When I played, I was more fearful of Akeem, even as a young player, than I was of Ralph, who was a little bit older. Olajuwon had that it factor, and you could tell it even earlier. Like, you go up for a normal shot, and you can shoot it over Akeem, or shoot it over Ralph. All of a sudden, Olajuwon would throw that in the third row, and you go like, dang, he got a little extra jump when he wants to get up there. And honestly, you could hit Ralph, and Ralph would back up. You hit Akeem, he'd hit you back. You'd be like, dang, that guy's strong too.
Right.
The thing that held them back is they look at their guards, and they had a lot of issues down there.
Yeah.
With that team off the court.
Yeah.
With
That
a lot of
was,
subs.
that was the 80s freelance paraphernalia era.
Yeah,
Freelance
paraphernalia.
Pharmacist.
Yeah. They had a lot of guys that were
Jackie Moon and them.
Hey, Kev. Well, I remember that because I experimented with ibuprofen. Hey, back when you were in college at Georgia Tech, they had a pretty good team going on.
They sure did.
Here in Atlanta.
I was
Sure
fatigued.
did. I mean, you think about those Atlanta teams with Dominique and Spud and Doc Rivers and Randy Whip,
Trey Rollins.
Kevin Willis,
Kevin Willis, yeah.
I
Jump
mean,
hook,
Cliff
yeah.
Robinson,
Cliff Levingston.
the original big dog.
Livingston, yeah.
Antoine Carr.
That was the original big dog. The original big dog.
Sleep on Antoine.
But that was a pretty good bunch to not win it all, and they had that one. Remember the Dominique, Larry Bird, big shooter?
Game 7.
And,
first of all, it was game 6 here in Atlanta when they were trying to say, hey, let's close this thing out. Let's not go back. But guys like John Battle, to come off the bench, Dominique's not playing well. Doc would go to John Battle and say, look, John, I need you to heat up.
Yeah.
So when he would come in
Mid-range shooting.
Right.
Cool. He could
would
really
just
shoot
kill
it, boy.
But like we talked about earlier, all these teams, back then, guys really understood their roles. They bought into their roles and said, now it's my turn. But with that team, they were so fun to watch because Dominique was the headliner, but everyone else around him. When you talk about Spud Webb, they would come over and play with us across the street at Georgia Tech, you say, this little joker can flat out go. First small guy getting the dunk contest, win the dunk contest, all that hype around them. The question would be, when it got crunch time, the other team would outsmart them. That was their downfall.
Kevin and Kenny, I'd have to ask the question. You didn't play much in the 80s, but was the team seem deeper back then? Or
yeah. I mean, there's less teams. There was less teams, so it just seemed like it was deeper. Go 9 or 10 deep. But we also say about the Hawks, we used to say they used to miss on purpose. Like they missed because they had so many great offensive rebounders. I promise you, this is the first time in my life where I used to the saying, "Watch your head."
Watch your head.
Because they miss a shot and everybody over the rim. But this much over the rim, like three guys, Antoine Carr, Dominique, and three guys, Antoine Carr, Dominique, and Kevin Willis.
So we're playing. It's Nick's a rookie. He's coming in. The ball goes up. I push C-Webb. You know how you clear space. You get that rebound every day. You're not even worried about it. Because I push it and I go up to get it, and all of a sudden, man, there's just a force all over my shoulder. He grabs it. He dunks it. Those short shorts. They were right here. I tell you right now. I mean, he threw that thing down, and I was like, oh my! And Larry has the classic line. Larry goes, Larry never got too excited. He goes, shoot, I better box that guy out, huh, Kev? I said, yeah, I suggest you put a body on him. That was one of the craziest things ever. I'd never seen a guy that high in my life. He just threw it down.
Short shorts right here, huh, Kev?
Right here, baby. That was not, I still have nightmares about that, Smitty.
Obviously. GA, those Dallas teams?
The Maverick, the Cavs.
Yeah, the
Cavs team,
Brad Doherty, Mark Price.
Those
I never thought they'd win, though.
No,
and they got knocked out in the 80s.
They'd win it.
80s.
No, but they were really good
playoffs,
team.
knocked out in the first round 7 times.
Okay, I never thought they'd win. I thought they were good, but I never thought they'd
But
win.
The Mavericks teams, though, those teams are really good.
Yeah.
That was one of the best backcourts, Rondo Blackman and Mark Aguirre. That was a difficult backcourt to deal with.
Really? 6 man of the year.
Derek Harper.
And then Sam
And Aguirre was scoring up front, believe me.
Roy Tarpley.
There were some guys that you had a hard time boxing out. And there were some guys you couldn't box out. He was in the couldn't ranks. I mean, he would work. That guy was an offensive rebounding fool. I mean, he would go to the offensive glass, and he worked. He had He was a great rebounder.
He was
He was the
Rodman
first-
before Rodman.
He's the first basketball player with butt implants, straight up.
Who was that? Mark? This
Butt
guy.
implants,
Roy Tarpley.
I don't know anything about that. That just scares me.
I'm gonna leave that one to West.
Were they doing that back
In
then?
other words, Rick
West of
Mahorn
Mavericks.
and Roy Tarpley got the biggest butts.
They
They
got
can
some-
box you out with their hands inside. They just, you stand behind them, they just holding you back with their butt.
Mavs and Bucks.
What we got?
Mavs or Bucks?
We talk about the
I'll
best.
go with the Mavs.
I'll go with the Mavs.
I'll go with the Mavs.
Now I go with the Bucks because I played against those teams. And I tell you what,
I'm
I'm
going
going with the Bucks.
Of those groups, I felt Mark Aguirre was the best offensive player.
Yeah, he could
Of
score
those
the ball,
two
yeah.
teams, and back then, you forget how good Mark Aguirre was. Mark
Yeah, but you
Aguirre-
forget a guy like Dale Ellis was on that team and couldn't get off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
no,
that
but
was
I'm
a-
just.
that's before he got
oh
traded.
my
That's before he
goodness,
got
that
traded,
team
yeah.
was.
We got traded to Seattle.
That team was loaded.
We'll move from the 80s to the 90s when we come back. I don't know what was said in the last minute 42 of that segment. You lost me after.
But
You
in
don't need no arms, just a butt.
I know, but I wasn't aware of the implants. There's a lot I'm not aware of. Anyway, we'll be back with more Open Court after this.
So Shaq's in the studio doing the album. I'm
We
out on the
heard
boat on the
about
sea
this.
dudes.
We heard about
Kenny
this.
and Nick at the bar.
Don't say that, dog, because that makes me mad as hell, man. I want that.
Back here on Open Court and moving to the 1990s with the duo of Stockton and Malone. Is this the best team in the 90s to never win the NBA championship, Derek Fisher?
I think this one's, for me at least, I think it's the Jazz in the West and Greg's Knicks teams.
Derek Fisher.
I think this one's, for me at least, I think it's the Jazz in the West and Greg's Knicks teams of the New York Knicks in the 90s in the East.
I agree with you.
Tell me about the
I'm
Jazz.
with you.
Yeah,
there.
the Jazz, I mean, I came in 1996. So John Stockton basically baptized me as, my first 3 or 4 years in the league in that decade in terms of any mistake that you made offensively or defensively, he made you pay for it. If you slacked off of him, he could shoot it. If you got too close, he still had a quick enough first step to get by you. If you didn't have your hands up in the passing lanes, he was whizzing that thing by your ear. And I thought
And everything within the rules on the defensive end.
well,
No, absolutely nothing inside the rules.
Come on.
I don't want to call
That
it
was
dirty.
that was the 16-inch softball throw right here for you guys to hit out of the park.
Exactly.
And to add to that, there was two different phases of that Jazz team. There was two different phases of that Jazz team. It was the young Jazz with the Jeff Malone running down. Then he got old. Then they brought in the second wave to get to the finals twice, and Russell and all them and lose. So the system they had, once again for me, everyone bought into it. You knew the back pick, you knew the diagonal back pick was coming, and Carmelo was coming.
Flex.
You knew it flex, but you couldn't stop it. But obviously, when they got to the finals, they always
You know what, too?
Chicago
And that
Bulls
was the
knocked
thing.
them out.
I don't think they were the most talented, but because of Stockton and Malone, probably had the highest basketball IQ. Because I think the Sonics teams were more talented. Definitely think the Blazers teams in the 90s might have been the most talented team ever to not win it.
To us, the San Antonio Spurs were a better team.
Then what was it about Utah that didn't make them the toughest for you guys?
Well,
to face?
when Dennis Rodman was a Spur, that was the best team in the West to me that didn't win it. Because Bob Hill decided to bench Dennis Rodman because he was late. And when we found out that he was going to not start, we had a celebration like the game had already been won because it was a different team when he was on the floor. So to us, they were harder, the San Antonio Spurs, to get by, I think, than only because defensively, they couldn't always stop you.
Come on, let's be real. They didn't have shot blocking. I mean,
No,
they
but you know
what?
what, Kenny,
let
sometimes
me
you
ask
guys
you this. If you got Utah right,
Yeah.
to me, I love their team. But in playoffs and championship, when it all breaks down, I didn't feel they had enough guys that could go get it when everybody knows to play.
See,
Too much of it's
I disagree. I think those two guys
And
can go
Utah-
get it.
those
But
two,
the
who
one
else?
thing that,
Who else?
To me,
Who else?
What
After
always
those two
would make
guys.
us fearful, I don't know about you guys and Kevin, the only thing that would make us fearful about winning was, man, they could shut us down. And so when, it's like, that's why the Knicks team we thought was, man, they could shut us down. And so when, it's like, that's why the Knicks team we thought was a little bit better, because we was like, at times they could shut you down. But we never felt that they would shut us down. We
Kenny,
thought we'd have to stop them.
To your point, too, the thing was back then it was about the matchups. Because the way y'all felt about the Spurs, another team might have felt about the Sonics. Like the Sonics were, you know what I mean? Like the match, it came down to matchups.
We felt like that about the Sonics.
Yeah. It was certain matchups that didn't work to your favor. Like if you got, like we didn't have that. Well, the only team like that for us in the East really was going to be the Bulls. But like in the West during that era, there were like 4 teams, and we used to talk about it. We were like, well, if they play such and such, they're going to win that series. Even though we thought you guys were the best team. But to your point, we thought that San Antonio would beat y'all because it was the matchups.
See, I thought they'd beat us.
We thought if they did what they were supposed to do, we thought they might get y'all.
But you shouldn't have been thinking like that.
No, it was a
when
matchup.
David Robinson took away Olajuwon's MVP trophy.
That was the night. The night that he didn't acknowledge Akeem Olajuwon. David mentioned every player but Dream, and we're playing, and I said to Dream, I'm like, that doesn't make you bad. No, Kenny, he deserves it. Then after the game, he had like 46. He goes, I'm going to his house to get my MVP.
3D, you referenced it before, talking about that Magic team. Were you overconfident going against Houston?
Yes, because we had got to the finals pretty easily. And it was, when you go back and look at it, we were rolling, and you had the Beast down low, and then Penny was really coming into his own. And then when he came into his own, I looked over at Nick, I said, we can ride these 2 young fellas right here, and we're going to have some fun.
If we don't have to hit the dive.
Fun.
If we don't have to hit the dive.
Ernie, stop. I'm not going there.
Free throws.
I'm not going there, Ernie.
I know.
But those 2 guys were so good that we just rode their coattails.
We knew
right?
y'all were too immature to win.
Yeah.
That we were young, right?
We knew it.
Yeah, we were young.
The only reason, because you play Utah, let's say, and you're in the city for 2 or 3 days, so you know what everything is going on in that city about the opponent, about you, and we're like, oh. Penny and D. Scott were at the mall. We're like, at the mall? You would hear things.
No, that was Penny and Nick at the mall, because they used to love to go to the mall back then. Don't put me in there. I ain't gonna lie, I was on the Sea Dudes running around. That's what I was doing.
We would hear stories about y'all, and we were like, they can't beat us.
Listen to me.
They don't deserve to beat us if they're doing that.
Listen to me. Game 7, we beat the Indiana Pacers, the Davis twins, Rick Schmidt, Reggie, and all that. We're excited. They got 2 more games to play. That's when Shaq was doing the album. So Shaq's in the studio doing the album. I'm
We
on
heard
the
about
Sea
this.
Dudes.
We heard about
Penny
this.
and Nick at the mall.
Don't say that, dog. That makes me mad as hell.
But you know what? If you think about the final, it was the only time ever that I thought the series was over after the first game.
Yeah.
I literally thought, because to your point, because of the inexperience, I was like, man, it's over. Like any other team, like if you lost the game like that, a veteran, experienced team would recover from that.
Y'all keep saying veteran, experienced team, and I don't even know who this person was, so I'm not throwing them on the bus. But that's a lot of the coaching, too. Because you just talked about how if you played for Pat Riley, you felt confident.
Yeah, but
you're right. So those little things that he instills in you, like this is how we do it. We have to do it every day, like this. So days that it's not even the game. You're thinking, I'm playing today.
But
I'm not playing.
The only
I'm just saying
difference,
that
though,
a coach makes. I'm just saying
it makes a difference. But think of it this way: think of all the championship teams we talking about. That's the only team where their 2 best players were basically in their first, second year.
No, not true. What did Magic do the first?
Magic played with Kareem.
Yeah. No, Magic sat in Kareem's seat.
But he played with Kareem. What I'm saying to you
he
is
wasn't
the
at
culture.
the mall before.
No, but y'all, but wait a minute. We don't know where they were. All I'm saying to you is
3D told us he was on the
Hold on.
Get control, EJ.
Okay.
Watch this, though. But it goes back to we're up by 22 at half in game 1. So we walk in the locker room like, yeah, Shaq, you busting his butt. I got 5 threes. Penny's killing everybody in the post. And you know, it went from 22 to 14 to 10 to 8 to 6 to 4. We go,
Right, exactly. Right.
Listen.
You know you know that they're not going to stay focused. So just if you get it to 12,
Yeah, you
then
gotta
this
do it.
whole game changes. But all you have to do is get it to 12. We ain't talking about getting it to 5. Get it to 12. It's because there's an immaturity that was just not, and it's not immaturity. It's like
Yeah,
That's
the
my
one
point.
thing
It's
with
inexperience.
the moment.
They're enjoying their moment, and y'all
Right.
like,
No,
we
we
need
want
to
you. We were
So the
focused
one
on-
thing you're talking about right now is they were capable of beating themselves. Like
Right,
the Jazz were not going to beat
No,
themselves.
they weren't.
They
Those
weren't.
teams, they're not going to beat themselves, and you guys were capable of beating yourselves by and
series this
and multiple
year.
other things. But I mean, those are the teams, honestly, that I feared more that weren't going to beat themselves.
I hate to mention this team, but he's not here. But we got to give the Pacers some love too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the Pacers probably had the longest. The Pacers and then
We're gonna
go back
get
to
it.
the '80s Bucks.
Yeah.
Those two teams
You
were
thought
the
they were
longest.
gonna win, though?
No, but what I'm saying is they were the best for the longest. Like they were there. They were the closest for the longest.
Long time.
Don't go too long in that because we're going to get into the Pacers in the 2000s.
I just felt that the best Celtic teams they don't get credit for, the Laker teams, and even our Houston team, and then as we moved on in this era, is defensively, it was very difficult to score against Robert Horry, Hakeem, Vernon Maxwell, Mario Elie, and then the best lineup in basketball, Mikhail Parrish, and the defensive presence that was alert against the Lakers, Celtics era, and out. That, to me, makes you the champion, and that's what held those other teams back in my estimation.
We're going to take a break.
And the Wave Runner.
Yeah.
And the way you wanna-
No, you know what?
Or the
3D,
mall,
3D,
or the
you
mall.
aware of this? That after the year after that championship, they renamed that vessel.
What?
The Sea Don't. We will be back with more on Open Court right after this.
We kill him on the pick and roll. Dell Davis couldn't shoot. We fouled him. And like the Davis boys, lunch me. So that's all I'm saying.
I disagree.
We welcome you back to Open Court because I am a man of. We welcome you back to Open Court because I am a man of my word. I will start this segment by going to Greg Anthony, so he can unload his wealth of knowledge on the Indiana Pacers. But really, it was a carryover, 90s and
Yes, it
2000s.
was.
They made the finals in 2000. Reggie Miller, obviously the centerpiece of that team. So make your case for best team to not win it for Indiana.
I think, again, it goes, sometimes we focus more on the talent than the team. And a lot of the best teams weren't the most talented. And I would say the Pacers, the Bucks, Reggie Miller is a Hall of Fame player, but he played with not only great players, but guys who appreciated their role. They ain't just understand, they appreciated their role. We had wars with the Pacers. I mean, first of all, Reggie, who I don't think gets enough credit, Reggie is one of the smartest, antagonizing basketball players that ever played. Like, he knew what buttons to push.
Or when to push you down.
And when to push you down. That's another good one. I like that one. But you got to get that team. And again, you don't often talk about them because they didn't have those superstars. 'Cause even Reggie.
Man, they have a guy who's a referee now. Hayward.
Yeah, Hayward working.
Come on, man.
Wait.
You know they weren't superstars.
Hayward was what team y'all talking about.
Hayward was
I'm really trying to be honest.
No, Hayward's a good guy.
But you know what it
he said
was?
They have superstars.
And you
of
know
course.
what would've been
The guy's
tough?
a referee now.
See, Webb, y'all would have.
That's never
say in
good,
the
Kenny.
regular
That's
season,
never good.
C. Webb's team would have killed him.
Kevin McKill's
Probably would have killed him but then what happens when you get in the postseason? You got to play 7 times.
Yeah, but you got a lot of ifs. We didn't play them. We wouldn't have played them. They wasn't a team you ever thought was going to win the championship 1 year in 2000.
No,
I
we
would
played.
say- No, that's the question. I just want to keep it
Oh,
real
you
for
talking
the
about
people
2000?
at
I'm
home.
going back to 90s. Like for me in 2000, I'm with you. I didn't think the
thought they was
2000
gonna win in the
teams weren't
90s?
as good.
So you
No.
thought in the 90s when Jordan was there?
No.
This guy's team, man, and I hate to be the bearer of a cloud, but if there wasn't a dishonest referee, there might be a different champion, man. This guy's team was incredible.
Fish don't believe. Fish not
D. Fish, you're
agreeing with
shaking
you.
your head
It's
over
a
here. Hold on, let me hear
possibility,
from D. Let me hear D.
disagree with
Fish.
that.
And-
I agree with that. The fact that they may have been the best team to not win a ring in the 2000s, but I don't agree with one game changing the series.
But that
and
one
changing the
game, they
final.
were up. They were up in the series.
And going home to the best home court advantage. But we could talk about all that up all day because the fact is I didn't win, so we could be like, oh, it's the best team, and so yeah, I'm in the barbershop Hall of Fame. Hey, we almost would have did. But when we're talking about Indiana, and Reggie is definitely one of my favorite players, they weren't even close. Like they weren't even like. Let's just be honest. On the scouting report. On the scouting report, Steve, was y'all worried about it? You knew they were professional?
In the Eastern Conference, in the 90s, though, you were.
Their 2000 team against Reggie's team. Which team is it going to be?
The teams in the 90s.
I'm just saying. What's going on?
I'm saying the 2000 Pacers, I don't think was on that level.
Well, that's 2000s, no, not the Pacers.
That's the team that went to the finals.
No, that team was not his best team. That's what I'm trying to say.
But they did go to the finals.
They went to the finals, but his 90s team...
Would they have beaten Chris Webber's team?
Man, I don't know. The 90s team...
Well, let me say straight for you.
Let me say
Go back and look at the games.
My 90s Knicks teams would have beat his team.
First of all...
Our 90s Knicks team.
Now we're about to really get a good show.
We just
Let's go.
He's supposed to say the same thing.
If we've been spinning our wheels for 45 minutes, now the show does
No. I guess I'm saying
Hey, Chris, don't bite your tongue. Would y'all have beat the Pacers or would y'all have beat the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have moved the center. We would have definitely beat the Knicks. We beat the Knicks at my time in Washington when I had a hurt shoulder. We were not scared of
beat
the
us
Knicks.
when?
We were not scared of
in
the
a
Knicks.
game?
We were not scared
Everybody
of the
get beaten again.
The Knicks were really good, but we didn't play against y'all, so we shouldn't get in this argument. What I'm saying is Indiana wasn't that good.
Not the
I love
2000s.
your analytic skills, but to go back in time and say they were that good when they didn't make the finals in the 90s, then to go back and say they was that good in 2000 because Jay and Reggie did work. I think they were the first players to have 40 in there, but as a big man, Rick Smith couldn't get out. We'd kill him on the pick and roll. Dell Davis couldn't shoot. We fouled him and like the Davis boys, lunch meat. So that's all I can say.
We knew if you took away Reggie, at the end of the day, they couldn't go nowhere else. And I think that was the 90s.
You face guard Reggie. If you face guard Reggie, go under the screen on Mark Jackson.
We would say that about Jordan. If we take away Jordan...
No, it's different.
What happened when y'all took away Jordan? Oh, I bet they still won a championship.
We had a lot of success against Jordan. I mean, if you go look at statistics, he'd have a lot of 10 for 35 games against us, bro.
But they won? They win? Was
they won
relative?
some.
He won 6. What happened was...
He won 6.
No, I'm trying to make a point. He's saying they beat them. They also beat y'all in the playoffs. Am I okay?
Our first year.
But he's not claiming to be the best team in the 2000s.
No.
He's claiming to be the best.
I give them 2000. You ain't even listening to me. I said the 90s. The 2000 teams. Yeah, but he said I got to talk about the 90s. So I went back to the 90s.
Don't blame me for your lack of an argument.
The conversation in the 2000s is between Chris's teams and the Suns teams. The 2000s Pacers were more like the tail end of the great teams of the 90s.
Yeah, I agree.
They made it to the finals against the Lakers in 2000.
Got
lost. No, actually, that was the best series that we actually played against an Eastern Conference team.
So you played against both teams, C-Webb's team or the Pacer team. Which was more difficult for y'all to play?
Oh, C-Webb's team.
Yeah, the King. That's I've been saying the Kings teams of the 2000s were probably the best teams to not win it. So the conversation is between the Suns 2000s that didn't win and Chris's team.
And so,
2000s
same
that
question
didn't
that Kenny just posed to you about those two teams.
I mean, we had more difficulty with Chris's teams than the Suns teams, but the Suns teams own the Lakers teams that I wouldn't own.
Y'all team was good because y'all executed. You, everyone else. Y'all did your job. But the reason why I do think that we are the best team, not because of me, not because of Peja, Bibby, anything, but because they had 2 Hall of Famers and 1 Hall of Famer on the bench.
They were unique in how they played, which made them very hard to guard. Like some of those unique teams, like you can play the cookie-cutter teams. They all do the same thing, just have better players.
They played
these
a lot
guys,
like the Warriors play.
Yeah, these guys were unique. And I tell you what, they were hard to play against. I was managing in Minnesota. And you look at them and say, boy, we got to match up with these guys and how they play. It was like you'd play 4 or 5 games, then you'd play them, and you go, man, that's a whole different game. I thought they had the most entertaining brand of basketball. I loved watching their team play. I always rooted for them because I just loved how the ball moved and everything.
And Chris hit it on the head, though, about that. At the end of the day, too, that's another situation where I think you're Hall of Famer, but they had the 2 best players on the floor. Yeah. You know, like that makes a...
Well, and there are others were focused.
But also, Chris, to go with that, but then because those...
Now, to me, is that in my opinion, and I know Shaq says it to others all the time when he's around, Robert Horry, Rick Fox, Brian Shaws, Ron Harper's, like, guys were okay, and you said it, not just like, I'll accept this role because, like, that's what they told me I'm supposed to be doing, and I can't wait till I get a different role at some other point. Like,
Much as those.
No, but what made it easy for me, Vernon, Mario, Sam Cassell, I never, and this is God's honest truth, I've never heard Akeem say, my team.
My guys.
Or my guys. Never. So I never felt like he was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? I'm not your guy. I'm not like, this is Rockets. It's not. So I never felt alienated. I always felt, and he made me feel inclusive, even though he was the best scorer, the best defender, and the best player. But he made me feel inclusive in a way that I never questioned that.
I think that's an excellent point. Coming up next on my show is... Coming up next on Open Court, we're going to open it up. Who's your top five? Who's your starting five of players who never won a championship? Ooh. That's the way we'll wrap up the show when we come back.
DJ.
Yeah.
Well, you ain't first the conversation, though.
Thank you for reminding me that. That's a true friend. Thank you for reminding me. I'm not first, but I'm in it.
And we welcome you back to Open Court. We've been talking this entire show about the best teams to never win a title. Now we're going to just talk individuals, and this is it's kind of tough. This is like when you're watching golf, and it's like, hey, the best player to never win a major and that kind of thing. But this, we're not talking current players now. We're talking players who have retired. And I don't know if you can narrow it down to one, and I'm thinking if you had to do a starting five of players who never won a championship, if I were to throw at you this starting five.
It's got to be positioned?
Yeah, I don't care. This was my position.
That's tough.
A backcourt of Stockton and Iverson. Forwards of Barkley and Malone, and Patrick Ewing in the middle. Your reaction would be?
That's my five. No hesitation.
Seriously, no hesitation. And here's the thing. Elgin Baylor is often referred to as a guy who never won a ring, but he played 9 games that season, then he retired, and the Lakers actually gave him a ring.
That doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
I was going to say Elgin Baylor probably had more heartbreak in all those games than anybody. I mean, probably makes Chris feel good about how it happened because they ran to the Celtics and they ran to that beast named Bill Russell and that whole juggernaut that they had going there and couldn't get over the hump. And you're talking Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, 2 of the top players ever to play the game. They went in there.
But you think about the other players who would be on the list. The Reggie Millers of the world, and Dominique Wilkins.
Yes.
Dominique Wilkins, yep.
And George Gervin and Steve Nash.
Got the strongest argument to be included.
See, I almost, that's why I said regardless of, I have him in my top 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's your top 5?
Because Neek is,
I'm just talent alone, yes. I mean, just on pure talent.
Malone, Barkley, Neek, Ewing.
Yeah,
That's
the 5.
That's my 5.
And that's not, and Iverson.
So Neek would knock AI out for you.
Yes. The longevity, Allen Iverson had a better 3-year run, but the longevity of 10 years, Dominique was a better player. He never had a 3-year run like AI had.
Right, no, not at all.
He never had a run like
But
Nick run.
AI's in 2 positions, too, because he came in as a point and then Larry Brown moved into the 2.
I'm just saying, forget position. I'm just saying,
forget position.
I just think that, obviously, AI did things culturally that changed the NBA.
But isn't he top 5 averages all time in the playoffs?
But Dominique, you can't even think about the Atlanta Hawks without thinking about Dominique.
No, I agree. I would only put AI maybe over Stockton.
Chris Webber's on the list, too.
Yes.
No, I would, Barkley. No. Because if it was not for Barkley, Malone, those guys, I wouldn't even be here. And I look at it like Patrick Ewing. I wanted him to get one. Barkley,
I'm talking
Malone.
in the conversation.
No, I'm fine, but
You ain't first the conversation, though. But you.
Thank you for reminding me that. That's a true friend. Thank you for reminding me. I'm not first, but I'm in it.
I did say you're the best team in the 2000s.
But I'm going
to keep it right.
But you ain't even hear me say that your team was my team, and I said without Barkley and my. But you had to remind.
What you got, Mac? on this?
Well, you're talking about my originally I said Elgin Baylor, but you did say he won that one. That one he stands out to me, and Stockton and Malone really stand out to me because just because they were there for a long time. You talk about Dominique Wilkins had many wars against Dominique. He had a really good team for a long time, which also you got to figure that. And some of these guys just didn't play on good teams. I mean, they were really good players, but he had a chance where they were a 50-plus win team. I think there's every year. I think you got to look at that. You can't say, well, geez, this guy's team, the most they ever won was 42 and they had a chance to win. They don't have a chance to win a championship. To me, again, it gets back to teams that won 55 to 60 games consistently over a 4 or 5 year period and then never won a championship.
And
I
played
guess
in an era where you played. Think about it. They had to beat the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Bucks in that era too. Like that era was a golden era because that was at a time where you literally did have, a lot of times in a conference you can honestly say, well, it's only 1 or 2 teams that can win the conference.
Who's number one then, guys? Who's number one guy? If you had to take one, eliminate everybody. So he's the number one guy.
David got one. Every center got one, but Pat.
Ewing over Charles.
Charles is 2. Pat,
No,
then
I would
Charles.
go. Ewing had better teams.
Yeah.
Ewing's team swept Charles's teams when he was in Philly. The early Ewing teams would beat.
Kenny, would you go Chuck or Neek? You said Chuck 2, Neek?
And then Neek 3 for me.
Man, I don't know.
Neek 3.
I might have to go Malone too.
Yeah.
Malone, ooh, yeah.
Carl Malone's got to be. Carl got to be.
And Charles,
he's
phenomenal. But Malone had honestly, even over Patrick, Malone had the most accomplished individual career. You got to think about how long and the level. He's third all time in scoring.
Yeah, and you know what? His teams won 5th every year.
He went to Kobe and Shaq and still couldn't get one.
That's what Carl did hurt his knee that year.
I'm not saying.
That's the reason why.
I can pay for jokes too about here.
That one hurts me the most. 04, when the Pistons basically swept us off the floor. We were lucky to win 1 game. But that year, Karl Malone deserved that ring more than anybody else on that team. If you look at the way we played with him on the floor and without him that season.
And he sacrificed, took less points.
Like everything about sacrifice, he did it.
He's the Kevin Durant of this era.
There you go.
You know what? I think that era, I think that team, you appreciated how good he was because how hard is it to go from being the first option to the 3rd or 4th option and still be effective? And he did it.
This has been, as it always is, a lot of fun. And it's great water cooler talk if people actually had water coolers anymore. Wonderful to be with you all, and for being our guests here on Open Court. You'll all receive a brand new 2016 Sea-Doo. Recommended by Dennis Scott.
Thanks, Grandpa. I need a Sea-Doo.
When you absolutely have to win the NBA title. Sea-Doo. See you next time on Open Court.
Oh, man. That was good.
Oh, good.